point of view is probably one of the hardest things to grapple with as a writer. The basic notion is that when you start writing a story, point of view just sort of comes to you, and it really does. All of a sudden, you're just writing in the I, the first person point of view, and that's the way it goes. It is a little trickier, I think, than that. And one of the things that I'm often dealing with students is the shifting of point of view unconsciously, moving from an I, one character, into an I, another character. Suddenly pulling up and being more omniscient in third person, and then going down into a limited third person point of view without consciousness. And that's the thing I think we have to do as writers, is to be really conscious of point of view. The other thing is sometimes point of view lends itself, it makes things confusing. You don't really believe the point of view. You don't think the I feels like a child, or the I doesn't feel like an alien, or that kind of thing. So this lecture is just about identifying point of view and picking point of view, and subsequent lectures will be about problems with point of view, also with tense, which is something that is really joined with point of view in terms of telling. So let's go to the handout here, and I want to just basically establish the points of view that we have, and they're right there in front of you. The first person, I, singular, we, plural. And I did one of the example I used for the third person novel point of view is The Weird Sisters, and that story is told in a plural, first person we. And why I think it works, though, is that periodically the narrative shifts into an I. One of the we breaks off and tells her story. It's The Weird Sisters is a riff on Shakespeare's witches, and this is about three sisters who come to a family home to deal with their father, and they are we go to our father's house, that kind of thing. It's rare. It's pretty rare. I recommend it a lot for essays when you say when we read, that it's inclusive. I is very common, especially now. It's really common in obviously memoir because the I is telling it. We are absolutely focused in on that character, though. We can't escape the I, and sometimes I really want to. Sometimes I just wish for the love of everything that I could get out of that person's consciousness, because I. So that's one of its drawbacks. The flip side of that is that we are completely in that character, and it's very immediate. So it's a big choice between I first person and she third person, and these days a lot of people are picking I. The second person point of view is you, and you go to the store, you go home to deal with your father after the death of your mother, you see that he's sitting in a chair. It's kind of a weird point of view. The you should be me. You talking to me? But it really is sort of masking an I underneath the you. So we know that you isn't me, it's you are writing this using you. It can hide, there's an anonymity in you because it's unclear who's being addressed or who's speaking. But eventually, when I read second person point of view pieces, I know that underneath the you is an I. And Laura Fraser wrote a memoir, believe it or not, in the second person you. And it's pretty cool. It's about an affair with an Italian man, and she's hiding behind the you. Clearly, that's why she's writing a memoir about an affair in the second person. And it works, except by the end of that memoir, I wasn't even reading you anymore. I saw I. The third person is the most common historically, the point of view, the go-to point of view, he, she, they. And I write a lot in third person. I write a lot in first person and third person. And third person is fun because you can you can write in one person's point of view, and then in another chapter write in another person's point of view. I don't recommend omniscience. It's a really hard point of view to deal with. You have to sort of be a genius, and sometimes people are, and it's really annoying. But I don't recommend, for instance, in one chapter, moving in and out of different people's heads, and we call that head jumping. I'm a big proponent of doing a point of view, and then going to another point of view after big white space, or a symbol, or a chapter heading. However, many people do it successfully, and one of the things to think about when you're reading is how people manage to do that. Okay, so some things I haven't said. The obvious plus of the first person is the immediacy, and I also did say this, that it's very redundant with the I, and you have to sort of hide the I a little bit because we know that the I is telling it. Also, we can't see beyond the I. The second person, I wanted to recommend a short story. It's Pam Houston's How to Talk to a Hunter. It's a really good short story in the second person if you're not familiar with it. The second person is much more common these days. And the third person, everyone really understands the third person. It's a very, since it's so predictable and understandable, and it comes to us almost naturally. If you're having a question, try it. The good news and the bad news is that you can change every single point of view that I've talked about, but it's not as easy as it sounds. And sometimes I will have redundancy errors from changing a point of view for years. As I'm writing it, I'll go, oh, there's a glitch. I left a U in there. So I think really centering yourself in a point of view early on in the first few minutes of a writing project is preferable to going back and changing 100 pages of a point of view that you suddenly decided it's not working. So really try to think about it. Okay, more on point of view in a bit, but I hope that gives you the basics of the choices that you have.